A little bit about the Medicaid program. It is a state and federal program in that they work together with funding from both. Medicaid will pay for care in a skilled nursing facility, as a nursing home, assisted living, adult family home, or even in your own home. That's under what's called the COPES program. In order to be eligible for Medicaid benefits, you need to qualify medically, meaning you need the care. You need to qualify from an income test and from a resource test. And it is the resource test that really is the more challenging limit for people to overcome. So medical eligibility basically is, do you need help with eating, bathing, dressing, transferring, toileting, walking, moving around, or do you have a significant cognitive deficit? If so, medical eligibility will be met. Medical eligibility is usually the easiest test to meet. Medical eligibility is determined by a care assessment by a DSHS social worker. Financial eligibility, two parts of that. There's an income test and there is a resource test. So financial, there's two pieces that you need to take a look at. So let's start with the income test for financial eligibility. For skilled nursing, basically the rule is that your income has to be less than the cost of care in the facility. So if it costs $12,000 or $14,000, if your income, you're the person going into the facility, is less than that, then you meet the income test. Usually that's not a big hurdle. There is a program that's called the Community First Choice, which covers care at home or in an adult family home or assisted living. And the income standards for that are much lower. For in-home care, it's $943 currently. And for care in a facility, it's 3 times that, or $2,829. And this is gross income. So if a person's income is less than that, then Community First Choice might be an option. If their income is more than that, but they need care at home or assisted living or adult family home, then what you're going to be looking at is the COPES program, which stands for Community Options Program Entry System. But COPES is what we call it. The income standard for categorically needing, which is don't get bogged down in that. It's the same though, 2,829. But what's really important to understand about the COPES program is that the income limit, the high end of the income limit is $10,387 plus potentially even higher than that. So it's a very high income standard. And if a person has income of $10,000 and their adult family home is only $6,000, they're not even going to be thinking about the Medicaid COPES program, probably because they can privately pay for it and they still have money left. But oftentimes it does make sense to apply for the COPES program, even if the income is higher. As I mentioned earlier, I'm trying to provide like broad information for education. When it comes to specific questions about, should I apply for the COPES program? Should I apply? Should my spouse apply? What should we do? I can't answer that, but I can provide you basic general information, and that's my goal here. So when it comes to the more difficult financial eligibility test, that's the resource allowance. And for Medicaid for single people, it is an impoverishment standard. It is $2,000. That's all the Medicaid client can have if they're single and they are going into care. There is a very quirky exception to that rule. If they're under 65 and they're going into a skilled nursing home and they haven't been on Medicare, there's no resource limit. At 65, the resource limit comes into play at $2,000. The next part of this slide is Community Spousal Resource Allowance. And that is the amount of money that the state says that the well spouse, the community spouse, can keep to avoid spousal impoverishment. So Medicaid actually does have a policy to prevent the well spouse from becoming impoverished, and thus Medicaid allows the community spouse to keep money beyond that $2,000 for benefits that are provided under the COPES program or the CFC program. It is $68,301. That's what the current standard is. That is the minimum. If the ill spouse is going into a skilled nursing facility, the well spouse may be able to keep up to $154,140 as the Community Spousal Resource Allowance. Sometimes we call that CESRA. That what it means is that the spouse can keep a certain level. It's even higher. And this is because Medicaid has a different set of rules for skilled nursing versus community option programs like COPES and the CFC program. So in order to keep that higher level at 154, this is how it works right now, is at the time the person who is ill went into the hospital or then later went into the skilled nursing facility, in order to keep 154,000, they needed to have double that in countable resources. So if at the time of institutionalization, the couple had 400,000 in countable resources, they can keep 154,000. If they had less than double that, I hope I'm not losing you here, then they can't keep the 154. So for example, if they had 200,000, how much can they keep? 154? No, because that's not double 154. So if they had 200,000 in countable, they can keep 100,000. If they had 100,000 in countable, they can keep the 68,000. So Medicaid's rules are really, really detailed, and sometimes they don't follow common sense. And it is for that reason that if you or your spouse or loved one are facing long-term care and you're trying to figure out how can you qualify for Medicaid without having to spend down all your assets, you really want to see an elder law attorney who has expertise in Medicaid benefits. Not all elder law attorneys do. So when you're looking for the elder law attorney, ask them the question, do you help clients qualify for Medicaid long-term care benefits? Is that something that you frequently do, you commonly do? Are you familiar with the rules? Get an idea of how many times have they done this? Do they have, a dozen plus cases that they're working on, or they're just doing one or two? If so, I'd be concerned, because this really is an area that expertise is necessary to do a good job.